Station gang, and welcome to Surrounded by Short Boxes with your boy Stu from Dr. Doom's fan club. This is going to be a weekly spotlight on some of my favorite back issues from the personal collection, looking at issues both old and new, and talking about why I love them so much. To kick off our inaugural episode today, I chose a personal all-timer, none other than Swamp Thing number 56 from January 1987, My Blue Heaven. This issue is written by Alan Moore, the great Alan Moore. It begins his final arc on his Swamp Thing run as he transitions the Avatar of the Green's epic journey away from horror and into sci-fi and fantasy. Let's take a look inside at why I love this book so much. My Blue Heaven features gorgeously haunting art, apparent both on the cover here from regular series artist Stephen Bissette and on the interior pencils by the great Rick Veitch. Veitch would go on to succeed more as writer of Swamp Thing after Moore's Swan Song on issue 64. Inking and coloring come courtesy of Alfredo Alcala and Tatjana Wood, respectively, and it's this incredible duo who really form the aesthetic bedrock for this book, consistently showing up issue after issue throughout the length of this run and providing a consistent artistic anchor on inks and colors as both John Totleben and Stephen Bissette rotate on main art duties. So, a quick bit of setup. In our previous issue, issue 55, we held Swamp Thing's funeral. Thanks to Lex Luthor, Swamp Thing's corporeal form was effectively extinguished and his intelligence sent careening off Earth. As he travels bodiless through interstellar space, he's in search of a world that both contains plant life and is compatible with his new frequency of existence. And now, here at the end of issue 55 and the beginning of issue 56, he's found one. It's a planet with life, plants, fish, and insects, but there's no people. Gravity's super heavy here, and everything is some shade of the color blue. Not only is this a literal blue planet, but in a more metaphorical sense, our color motif is beautifully used here to convey the loneliness, the sorrow, the desperation, and the isolation that we so often associate with feeling blue. This complex color theme is infused into every inch of the story, not only through Tatjana Wood's incredible cerulean color palette, but also that raw, visceral language from Alan Moore, as Swamp Thing waxes poetic about all the myriad kinds of blue on this planet. There's, quote, soil like powdered sapphire, turquoise ferns and duck egg pebbles, aquarium light filtering through clouds of bleached cobalt. There's the glint of Prussian midnight, the color of orbiting police lights smeared across tenement windows, and finally, my favorite, there's blue, the color of saxophones at dusk. Also, our first line, everything is blue, repeated throughout Swamp Thing's inner monologue, is a reference to Swamp Thing number 35. These are Diagonal Bob's last words as he dies from nuclear waste poisoning in the Nuke Face Papers Part 1. This association to Moore's harrowing American Gothic story arc gives the issue an ominous note from the very beginning. After discovering the planet, Swamp Thing's days become weeks, and he resigns himself to spend eternity there, never to see Abby again. In order to distract himself from thinking of her, he experiments with different body shapes and appendages, which allow him to glide through the air. Soon, however, he grows bored. But then he remembers his ability to inhabit and control multiple bodies simultaneously, and so he fashions a double of himself as a companion. Silently, they construct a chessboard and begin playing. But after 5 games, all of which end in a stalemate, the Swamp Thing becomes bored again and abandons his second body. Later that day, on a sudden impulse, he creates and brings to life a nude Abby. Moore and Veitch use this moment of creation to homage the birth of Venus by Botticelli, and a brilliant little nod to creation itself in one of the most famous paintings of all time. Although he knows deep down she isn't real, and although it repeatedly occurs to him that he's gotten her smile wrong, Swamp Thing is so overcome with longing that he chooses to believe he has his lover back, even to the extent of making her speak, and that evening, making love to her. The following day, Swamp Thing notices Abby is running out of things to say. So, in order to give her more context, he creates an entire replica of Houma, Louisiana, and populates it with vegetable people, giving some the appearance of the Hollands, others Matt Cable, and other people he can remember. And a cool little Easter egg detail that you may have missed, much of the signage within this fake Houma, Louisiana town references the color blue in some way. Look closely and you'll pick up on several examples. There's the now showing the Blue Lagoon sign, We Give Blue Stamp sign, and a Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance poster. I love these little blink and you'll miss it tiny details. They just help make the book that much better. And they're the indigo icing on top of this cobalt cake. Back to our story. All is well in this fake town until Swamp Thing and his fake Abby encounter a Constantine replica that Swamp Thing doesn't recall having intentionally created. Constantine, true to Swamp Thing's memories of him, insists on reminding him that he and everyone in this phony town are mere extensions of his own mind, saying, quote, I only speak the words that you put in my mouth, and I only speak the truth. This angers and troubles Swamp Thing, who storms off with Abby tagging along, trying to console and even seduce him. The avatar of the green, or rather the blue, can no longer ignore the illusions he's constructed around himself, down to Abby's smile that he just can't get right. Meanwhile, it's begun to rain, which accelerates the growth of these constructs and causes them all to warp beyond recognition. Finally, in a blind rage, Swamp Thing punches Abby's head off her body. Instantly recoiling in horror at what he's done, he considers briefly restoring life to her, but realizes that would only further perpetuate his self-deception. Gone mad, he tears through the replica town, which his mind now can no longer hold together, as its residents begin to fall apart. Eventually, Swamp Thing realizes that to retain his sanity, he must find a planet with human life. He must find genuine companionship. After giving Abby's severed head a final kiss, he abandons this body of blue and leaves this world of sapphire soil and the remains of his own failed creation behind, saying, quote, it shall remain here as a decayed monument to the pain of a sundered romance, a bitter love letter left tear-stained and crumpled in this obscure corner of the universe, a blue Valentine. Swamp Thing number 56 is a comic book that wonderfully and woefully articulates love and loss, and it does so in such a profound and evocative use of the medium. From our Shakespearean Swamp Thing, waxing poetic on life with his poetic phrasings, to Veitch's mind-blowing page composition and paneling, to the wondrous use of every kind of blue by Tatjana Wood, it's a comic that finds its creative team at full power and synchronicity. When I think of Swamp Thing 56, I think of sorrow and I think of hope. I think about the never-ending battle so many of us silently wage with grief. It's a beautiful, somber rumination on love, loss, and letting go. Thanks for watching. You can catch me every Wednesday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, co-hosting Ink and Insights with my boy E from 9 Panel Grid, and also every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Blood Splatter Chatter with my homies Verno and Link talking horror movies. I hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next week. Station.